So I'll count it off.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3.
Just let's go.
1, 2, 3, go.
1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Hey folks, welcome back to the rehearsal room. I noticed that I was saying that a little weird in a couple of the episodes.
I didn't want to say anything.
Hey, English is my second language. Nick here.
Aaron's here.
Thank you guys for joining us once again, as always. We're going to do another album deep dive this time around. We have selected perhaps many of you uses out there's favorite band. This one is Morbid Angel from Florida.
Hell yeah.
The album in question will be their first, Altars of Madness. Aaron, do you have a little backstory?
Yeah, just real quick, just to make sure everybody's kind of up to date for those who may not know, and just reminders for those who do. So, as Nick said, Altars of Madness, Morbid Angel's, I guess, technical debut. Obviously there's some, but as far as Trey is concerned, the other one is not their debut. This is
because they had a demo before. Right?
Yes,
Yeah.
which they claim they didn't like the way it sounded, and so on and so forth. So now it is available. You can listen to it. Obviously, I believe two songs, Chapel of Ghouls and what's the other one? I can't remember now. But the other one, two of them from that are actually on this one. So, Altars of Madness, you got it May 12th, 1989, released by combination of Combat Records, which was, I believe, owned by Warner Brothers at that time, and Earache over in England. Yeah. About 8 days to do, which fairly impressive considering, at the legendary Morrisound Studios.
Yep.
So, Florida death metal, pretty much, if you're going to record, that's where you're going.
That's like the capital of Floridian death metal.
Absolutely, absolutely. Which had already done, I believe, at least one Cannibal Corpse record, and I believe
Death's Leprosy?
I think Scream Bloody Gore.
Oh, okay.
I think, their first one. Lineup for this one, this was when they were still a four-piece at this point. So you have Trey on guitars. You have Richard Burnell also on guitars. David Vincent on bass. And, of course, Pete the Feet right on drums.
Yep.
Cover art done by the always amazing Dan Seagrave.
Yeah.
Famously, obviously this one, also some other great ones that I'm sure many people are aware of. Left Hand Path.
Yep.
Malevolent Creations Retribution. Suffocation's Effigy of the Forgotten. And Dismembers Like an Ever-Flowing Stream. I imagine saying those for some people, they can already see the cover in their head.
Yeah,
those are so iconic.
Totally, yeah.
And Seagrave being one of those very iconic, especially in death metal, artists.
Yeah, him. Another one was like Ed Repka.
Yes.
Was another great death metal artist. Especially back in that time span. Yeah,
absolutely. Much like the last time, I just to kind of set the table, looked at what were some other albums that came out in '89, and surprisingly, I did not realize. Holy moly! A damn good year for some albums. And last time I was able to go beyond metal. This time it was just so many good metal ones. I just kept it to metal. So you're talking Beneath the Remains by Sepultura.
Yeah.
Obituary Slowly We Rot.
Hell yeah.
Terrorizer's World Downfall.
Hell yeah.
Sodom's Agent Orange.
Yep.
Carcass's Symphony of Sickness. Voivod Nothing Face. Repulsion's Horrified.
Yep.
Bolt Thrower Realm of Chaos. And Godflesh Street Cleaner.
Yeah.
Dude. Like, Jesus Christ, 89, everybody.
Bangers left and right.
Wow.
Yeah.
You have, the themes on this album, much that carry through a lot of them, obviously. Stuff like, Satanism, Lovecraft stuff, Sumerian, gods, and, the ancient ones gets called out a lot.
A lot of, anti-mainstream religion stuff is in there as well.
Yeah.
Songs like Chapel of Ghouls. You have zombies kind of attacking the priest and the chapel itself and all that stuff, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's what. And let me a little backstory for myself, just to kind of set up for me, because in the effort of full disclosure, death metal is something that I personally have only really been getting into in the last 4 years. It was a thing that there were bits and pieces, Morbid Angel being one of them.
Yeah.
Deicide being another, that I would hear songs and I definitely liked. But for whatever reason, death metal just wasn't doing it. Some of it also is when I get into certain genres, I just immerse myself in it. So I went through a big doom sludge phase for very many, many, many years. Black metal, the same thing. coming out of that black metal thing, all of a sudden was like, maybe I do need to explore some death metal. And the first bands I turned to were Morbid Angel and Deicide. Because
nothing wrong with that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Right.
and just the impressions of stuff like, I mean, I can still remember God of Emptiness as a video and being scared shitless of like, my God, And some of that is what also kept me away from bands like that, because early in life, while not religious myself, I had a religious upbringing to some degree.
Sure.
That these were the bands that they warned you about.
Yeah.
One of the things, especially with this album, that I would definitely say is like, it's like they heard, Spill the Blood and Altar of Sacrifice and went, yep, that's everything we're going to do. Where Slayer dabbled in some of this stuff, Morbid Angel, and obviously then you get Deicide and so on and so forth, certainly we're like, oh, no. We're going full bore into this shit. This isn't something we're exploring. We believe it, or we're into it.
I think even famously, the way Morbid Angel presented themselves,
Yes.
like on shows,
Yes.
it was, I don't want to say better, but it fit the music maybe a little bit more, where like other bands, like maybe like Cannibal Corpse and you know, some other ones, they were dressed very...
Still thrash almost looking.
Well, not even that, because they were wearing like sweatpants and stuff like that, right? So it was just like, all right, well, Morbid Angel wanted to up it a bit,
Yes.
and they looked the part, because I know a lot of the look they had back in the day also influenced black metal bands that came afterwards.
For sure.
Because they started wearing like the leather pants and all that shit. Yeah, so they certainly stepped into the role of what they were presenting musically.
Oh yeah, I mean it's like, things that I was reading was stuff like while other bands dabbled in that stuff, they were presenting it in a way that you're like, oh, these aren't guys who just read a book.
Right.
Like these are guys like they may actually be like I think if I listen to this album 5 more times, I might actually summon something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it just they seem to, and then you talk about it in ways. One of my favorite songs, although again, original release did not have this on the cassette or the vinyl. I found out only on the CD release, but it's weirdly my favorite song on there. The Lords of All Fevers and Plagues.
Yeah.
I fucking love that song, and they're literally saying like, when I first heard it, I was like, is that just gibberish? And then I look it up. It's like, oh no, these are like Sumerian gods, or stuff that's taken from Lovecraft and stuff. But it's just like, dude, like, whoa. And certainly in 1989, like that's the next step. Lyrically, especially. Forget the music part. I mean, that's another thing I think of when I hear this album is this to me, because obviously. The discussion of what was the first death metal record, if you will. A lot of times people will go, well, Possessed 7 Churches.
Sure.
Or you'll say Death's, Scream Bloody Gore.
Yeah.
And I'm not disagreeing with those as much as to say, this was the time to me when you heard it, you go, I don't hear the thrash anymore. You know what I mean?
That's funny because I do.
Do you? Okay.
Oh, yeah. And like left and right. Because I listen to the kind of the... Just the I don't even know how to say the way they're playing the riffs.
Yeah.
And it's very tight and precise, which
For sure.
thrash has.
Yeah, no doubt.
And even a lot of the drum beats, they are very thrashy beats. And of course he's throwing in the double kick and kind of doing like the weird abstract drumming for the intros and certain segments of the songs. And obviously the blast beat.
Yeah.
But a lot of it, I still, when I hear it back, especially like this whole past week that I've been, taking this album in, I think back to my original kind of opinion of Morbid Angels, especially this album. This is death thrash, heavier on the death, of course.
Yes,
but it's still thrash. Like it's still thrashy stuff in there, because I can hear, maybe because of the production also, I can hear, stuff that reminds me of like Sepultura. Especially like the faster parts of their music, so I do think thrash is still a big component in the music, especially on this first album.
Okay.
But yeah.
Well, for me, I guess what I would say is I feel like you can hear them moving away from thrash, which is to say maybe there's 1 foot, a couple toes left in it, but it's very clear, if you will, this is a changing of the guard kind of album. Like, we're about to enter what is going to become the delineation between death and thrash to some degree, And obviously, yes, as they progress into other albums, it's just straight up death metal. It's like Terrorizer, they're worldful. Grindcore is a death metal, maybe a little bit of both. And I understand it's influential to both sides, and I get why it's influential to both sides because it's not purely a Napalm Death record, but it's also not, a Morbid Angel record. It's got a little bit of both in there.
Sure.
So, definitely, I hear that. Like I said, I just think when you compare it to what a lot of people will say is the first death metal record, which again is almost never at first. It's usually a lot of stuff.
I also think with stuff like that, something like a genre like death metal has had so many inception points.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, every one of those. I mean, many of the albums that I read off that were put out in 1989. Some were maybe a month before. Most of these seem to be after. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
which means they were all doing it at the same time. This wasn't.
Yeah,
these guys were putting out demos prior to this also.
And that's another thing that, as we are discovering now, so many other bands had demos previous to this, right? So, I've said this before to other people, where like, when somebody points at a particular album and says that's where it all started, like, with Seven Churches or whatever the case might be, for whatever genre.
Sure.
I'm not trying to pick on Possessed.
No.
It's okay, that and 25 cents gets you a bag of chips, because other people can point at other stuff happening at the same time. It's kind of like I know this is a tired example, but like comedians coming up with the same joke at different times.
Yeah. Oh,
right. There's parallel thinking and
Sabbath didn't invent heavy metal. They maybe have one of the forefront of it, but you had bands like Coven. You had other 70s rock bands that were doing things that were very influential to what would later become heavy metal.
Yeah.
But Sabbath encompassed a lot more of what would become heavy metal.
And
than
I think
others.
they also presented it better.
Absolutely.
Right?
And I think that's where I come down on why Morbid Angel, after, even though you get Death, obviously is a death metal band.
Yeah.
Scream Bloody Gore isn't to be mistaken for a thrash album. Neither is necessarily Possessed, Seven Churches. But to say that they are absolutely death metal is kind of, you know what I mean?
Sure,
like you hear so much of the thrash influence as it's kind of starting to shift. Where this one, for me, when I hear it, I hear more of the feet of what we're going to know what death metal is. And again, after this, all of a sudden now you're going to Deicide. Cannibal Corpse is already going to start putting out albums. Obituary puts one out the same year. So even the sound of death metal isn't fortified because you got bands that are going to change it and morph it and do what their version of it is, for sure. But just, again, I understand why most people will kind of plant a flag in this one, even if it's just to say this is kind of, if we have to start somewhere, I think it's here.
I also think with a lot of people, that's probably their first one, and so there's that bias of like, since that's where I started, that's the first one for me.
And not to take anything away from it, it is a very good record though too.
Sure.
I mean, again, I'm not. It's not to just. You're right. It could be very well. This was the first one, but I think over time, it's also stood the test of time. Look, as a Morbid Angel fan, this is not my favorite record. And again, effort of full disclosure, this is probably my least listened to Morbid Angel album. I've probably listened to it more in this week than I have ever, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah.
Because I love much more of what they do in Bless the Sick and Covenant and Domination. When they start to expand what Morbid Angel can do, that's when I really fall in love with Morbid Angel. So,
interestingly enough, this is the one album I really like.
Okay.
So the way I came across Morbid Angel was a couple of my cousins tried telling me I need to listen to this band.
Right on.
And I'm in some ways, this is my stubborn self.
Right.
I don't like things pushed on me. Right. So at that age, I'm not even 13 years old, and they're telling me to listen to something that I don't think I want to listen to yet.
Right.
So I listened to it and I enjoyed it. But then I remember like in 94 or 92, there was a movie called Night of the Demons.
Okay.
And I think Night of the Demons Part 2, they had a track in the movie.
Oh, okay.
They actually have 2 tracks.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so I remember I was like, oh, that's that fucking band that my cousins tried getting me into.
Right on.
Let me go back and see if I still have the cassette, which I did, and it was Altars of Madness.
Oh, right on.
Right? So I remember keeping that album and listening to it over and over again in circulation with the other stuff I was into already. Mm-hmm. When I learned of their more recent albums at that time, I didn't like them as much.
Understand.
This one has, I think, a ferocity that's not met in their subsequent albums.
I think I remember we had this discussion one time. We talked about when it came to Deicide and Morbid Angel.
Yeah,
you and I are both fans of both.
Yeah,
but you are a bigger Deicide fan. I am a bigger Morbid Angel fan.
Yeah.
And I've always, in my opinion, it has been Deicide is the Slayer to death metal, and Morbid Angel is the Metallica to death metal to some degree.
Sure.
Where Morbid Angel, by their first album, even in their first album, there are bits where you go, it's very clear they're not going to stay here.
Right.
They're going to want to expand beyond this. Right. And it's not to say that Deicide hasn't grown or changed in any way. It's just to say, whereas Deicide certainly were like, oh no, we have found our lane and we fucking love it and we're going to expand on our lane.
Yeah.
And I just think that, which is wonderful, because it does show for people who would normally maybe say, death metal, it all sounds the same, or who could tell bands apart? Well, you can tell two of the biggest bands apart right away when you listen to them.
Yes.
You know, I wouldn't expect Deicide to do Domination. Right. You know, do Where the Slime Lives? No way. They would never do it. It's slow. It's just almost a sludge song. It's not even a death metal song to some degree. You know, but I'm not surprised a Morbid Angel would do that. You know, on this first album with keyboards even. You know what I mean?
I was going to say, they, you know, I know people usually poo-poo the fact that keyboards are in music or whatever, but Morbid Angel was doing it from basically the beginning.
Yes.
Right? And they were extreme. They not only did they use keyboards, but they kind of changed tempo in songs and included a lot of melody, right?
Yes.
Again, as abstract a melody as it was.
Yes.
Because of Trey's guitar playing.
Yes.
But you heard it. Like you heard it and it was like, this is chaotic. This is
yes. Great word.
You know, this is angry music.
Yes.
And again, it made me believe when they were talking shit about religion.
Sure.
I was like, oh yeah, I can. You're into it. Like, I have no doubts you're into
this
all this
isn't a
shit.
political argument about religion.
Right.
Like, you'd like to see the death of God.
Yeah,
like,
you
holy
know,
dude.
so you know when
These aren't horror movie lyrics.
and interestingly enough too, I also see this kind of the Slayer influence on this one.
Oh, for
because
sure.
Haunting the Chapel,
Dude.
Chapel of Ghouls,
Dude.
right?
Yes.
So it's kind of like they took. You're right. They took the kind of like, we're gonna expand on our music from Metallica. I like that kind of comparison where Deicide is the Slayer, Metallica being the Morbid Angel. But I think also Morbid Angel saw what Slayer was doing and said, well, we can inject some fuel into that.
Oh,
right.
That's another way where I see the separation between the thrash, because Slayer took thrash to a new level in speed and ferocity.
Of course.
And Morbid Angel clearly saw that and we're like, we love that, but we want more of that. We're not going to, you know, like, look, Domination is their South of Heaven in a lot of ways.
I agree.
You know,
Yeah.
You know, they're doing Where the Slime Lives. They did South of Heaven.
Yeah.
You know, so there is some of that too, despite my whole thing about Metallica and Slayer. But either way, you know, it's just to say, no, I'm with you. And I mean, remember they do they do like a split with like Laibach and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're just like, whoa, that's ballsy. You could push off a lot of fans doing stuff like that.
Sure.
You could have, certainly at that time. For them to have the kind of wherewithal to even know where to go into that, you know, and you say like Trey. Obviously, I don't play guitar. I don't play an instrument, so I can't tell you what it is about what he does on a technical scale. But I've read enough people who are just like, the guy just is insane with the things that he comes up with, you know. Yes. And then the other part I thought was really interesting reading about was to your point about, like, you know, the influences in their music. Apparently, he's a huge Pink Floyd fan, and the psychedelic way in which he likes to play leads. Yeah. And I thought, well, there's a word I would have never associated with Morbid Angel, but when you hear it and then start hearing them, you go, yeah, it's totally there, dude.
If you picture a much more blasphemic, hyper stylized David Gilmour, you have Trey as Agthoth.
I mean,
you know,
it just like I remember reading. I think it was in that Decibel book about death metal and grindcore and stuff. That, like, just the way he thinks, like, he wrote a lead and then realized, what would it sound like if it was backwards?
Yes. Yeah.
So then he played it backwards. Oh no, that's what we're doing.
Yep.
And that's how he plays. You're like, wow, that kind of, like, just no rules, you know. He was quoted several times. I read it in several things where it was just like, you know, as far as he was concerned, you know, I wrote it down because I just wanted to make sure I wanted to write stuff that would make other bands run and hide. And it's like, to your point, when you hear this album, it sounds like they are on the attack. They want to raise the bar. They're like, okay, we see what you're doing. Yeah. Now see if you can join our level.
Yeah.
You know, and it just, and again, we mentioned it before, but I think it deserves mentioning again. How much more a sound plays in the ability for this album to resonate the way it does, I don't think it's said enough. Because, you know, at the time, that was a top of the line place. Sure. Also, I don't know how much of fans these guys were of death metal that they were walking in. You know, I don't know.
Yeah,
you know, but knowing to say, whether I like it or not, I think I know how to produce this.
Yep.
The triggers, the way to make that so it worked, so it wasn't just this muffled double bass. Like it sounds like it's right in your ears. Like that has an impact on how you're going to hear this.
The way
important.
the way like the drums sound, which I kind of read this in several places that the drums are maybe a little too loud.
I heard
on
a few
this,
people say
right?
that. Yes.
So, but the way the drums sound is very reminiscent of the Morris sound.
Yeah.
Kind of sound.
Yes,
right? Like,
absolutely.
And like when you hear it, you're like, oh, I know where this comes from. I know the thumbprints that are all over
Absolutely.
this. Right?
Which is cool, right? Because that doesn't always exist anymore now. It doesn't seem to.
No,
there used to
it
be
doesn't.
a time when we were growing up, you could, you know, whether it was a Steve Albini production or whether it was Morris sound or, you know what I mean? It had these little stamps.
A
you
later
know?
one was, what's his name? Ross Robinson.
Yeah,
was
oh,
one,
well,
right?
I think
For
of,
like a lot of other bands.
What's Colin Richardson, you know,
Yes,
with
yeah,
Carcass and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Like his production, you could pick it, you know?
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry.
One thing I really liked, I forget the names of the songs. The first song,
I had to write it down because I'm not good with him. Oh, Immortal Rights.
Immortal Rights.
Dude.
The way they kind of like do the playing it backwards.
Yes.
And then the whole song actually starts with that snare snap
Yes.
into the riff.
Yes.
Fucking genius.
Which, by the way,
genius.
Am I crazy to think they knew it's backward masking?
Yes.
Like they understand the Satanic Panic.
Of course.
And that's
of
what
course.
it is, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. You know, again, this is a band that's very aware of
Yes.
how they're presenting
Yes.
themselves, right?
Yes.
From not just the names of the songs, the song subject matter, the cover art,
Yes.
the logo, right,
Yes.
with the pentagram and the little,
Fuck yes.
the little pitchfork tail and
Yes.
stuff. Yeah, I mean, this when they said like, "Hey, we're gonna do a band and it's gonna fucking be evil,"
Right.
this was a great band to do that with.
Oh, for
right?
sure. And again, seeing Slayer and go, let's take it up a notch.
Up a notch, right?
You know?
Yeah.
And-
this
and-
is
and-
this
but-
is.
oh,
Sorry, go ahead. No,
No, please.
Okay. This is why I think, you know, maybe this is more wishful thinking on me, and I do think it's kind of a disservice to a lot of listeners who don't, you know, don't recognize the thrash influence, because there are obviously, we know the big four,
Sure,
right?
sure.
The big financial
Yeah.
four, right? But there were other bands that were doing the thrash thing. Obviously, our beloved Sepultura.
Absolutely.
That had a bit more of a darker edge
Yes.
to it, right?
Morbid
And
Visions, I mean.
yeah, just alone, right? There were bands doing it just as heavy as anybody else.
No doubt.
And I think Morbid Angel was not so much influenced, but they listened to that, and again they said,
Oh.
we can do that filtered through our
absolute-
ears, right?
No, another thing that I read several times, to your point, it's not just that he wanted to make music to scare people. They did see it as competition.
Yeah, yeah.
There are lines I remember reading where Trey is saying, like, we were in the scene. I wanted to beat every band that played with us.
Yeah.
It wasn't about camaraderie.
Yeah.
I saw what they were doing and I thought, we can do better.
Yep.
We're gonna do better. So yeah, especially imagine they already recorded this record.
Yeah.
And then the band changes essentially its lineup, and Trey goes, we're only going to keep 2 of those songs. And that thing only exists because, let's be honest, a record company was able to sell it after they had made sales on their other 2 records,
Yep.
and then go, okay, now we're going to re-release this. But it was up to Trey. Trey is adamant about Ultras of Madness is Morbid Angel's first album.
Yes.
Period. End of story. That other thing are just demos. They did not like the way it sounded. They did not like the way it was recorded. You know, and the effect of Morrison's sound on their, that album cannot be understated because of exactly what you're saying, where maybe Morbid Visions didn't sound as good, but it was definitely in the same realm of what they were trying to do, the darker thrash with what will become death metal, for sure.
Yeah, because like when you listen to Morbid Visions was recorded at Morris Sound as well? Or?
I don't think so, no.
No,
No,
right?
no,
But
no.
it had that kind of like that big vacuous guitar sound, where it sounds like it's coming from like a chasm somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And Altars of Madness has that. It has that like that fucking. This guitar is coming from another dimension, almost,
dude.
right?
Yes.
You
Like,
know?
I don't want to say cacophonous because it doesn't feel, but you do. Let's be honest. The album feels evil. Like the
Yes,
whole fucking
yeah.
album feels evil. Not in
Yeah.
the same way like Slayer was scary or Danzig was dark. It feels fucking evil.
It's evil, yeah.
Like they are summoning. Like seriously, I'm not kidding. There are times where you're just like, if I play that, like I said, my favorite one when he's doing the blah, blah, and you're just like, I think if I keep repeating this, something's going to appear. I really, truly believe this at some point, And it's just like, again, and obviously we're focused on this, but, you think when you get to Covenant and it's doing the bow to me, fair, and you're just oh my God. Like, just, as a side note, I played recently, like probably a year ago, I played that video for my wife who had never seen a Morbid Angel video. Even then, she was still like, Jesus Christ. And I'm like, yeah, now imagine when this came out in 1992 and I'm watching Headbangers Ball. And you're just like, the guy's turning into a demon, and these guys aren't running from it. Right. They're fucking singing to it.
They're the ones calling it.
Right. They're invoking it. You know what I mean? It's like, so yeah, this again, that is a step that I think this album takes above other things. Technically speaking, nothing against Chuck. Obviously, Chuck is a god on guitar and the things he's able to do with Death. But like, these guys are look, Pete Sandoval, Pete the Feet. This is not an accident. That motherfucker is amazing behind the drums. Yeah. Trey is a one of one in a lot of ways.
Right.
And David Vincent's approach to vocals is really cool. I love every album it changes in little ways, and I love that.
That's the thing that later albums I think I couldn't really get into.
Understandable.
Apparently, when he was recording the vocals for Altars, he was coming off of a cold.
I read that too.
Right?
Right.
Which I get. Like,
sure.
I've definitely been there in my own recording history. But like, man, if you could recapture just, I don't even want to like say this is fact, but if I could assume for a bit, just the anger of being sick or coming off of being sick and then having to record vocals.
And in Florida
where it's fucking muggy as hell, right? And you come out with this fucking piece of brilliance, right?
And maybe it's also kind of the a little bit of the pissed off of youth.
Totally.
How many early punk records just sound like, God damn, these kids are really fucking angry.
Exactly.
Then Bad Religion turns 50 and it's like, maybe we're not as angry anymore.
Yeah. It was a perfect combination of everything and everybody involved in this album. Favorite track you said was Lord of All Fevers and Plagues?
I have to say, I feel stupid saying it. Again, and as I said before, my history with this band is fairly recent.
Sure.
So I didn't know that this was a song that just wasn't on any original recordings. I hadn't really looked into that. So it almost feels stupid picking it, but I'm sorry. Just something about that song clicks immediately with me.
I didn't even know.
Maze of Torments, Chapel of Ghouls.
Dude, I was about to say.
These are staples. These are fucking amazing
Maze
songs.
of Torment is by far my favorite Morbid Angel song.
Again.
Just because, again, that kind of weird groove beginning that it has, right?
Yes.
And then when he blasts, it's like, holy shit, this is angry blasting.
Yes.
This is I don't know, it's so like purposeful. Like it's like you're blasting for a reason here, and it's an angry one, and it's a vicious one.
Yes, right? The immediacy of everything. Like that's another thing so my final listen before I threw it in the car coming over here was I looked at the lyrics because I really wanted to understand what he was saying, which is really cool too, because you're right. The vocals are so great in this, but it's also not a Glenn Benton, We're Not Suffocation, where I'm like, I have no idea what you're saying.
Oh,
you can really understand quite a bit of what he's saying.
It's one of those kind of shouted shrieks kind of,
Well, I read he was mainly influenced by Chuck and grindcore vocalists, is what he was saying.
Yeah.
So, and you're right. Again, maybe with the cold, just all these confluence of circumstances produced the perfect. And I saw several people say, this is actually my favorite vocal performance of his. Despite what he did on others that I love, this one's my number one. So you're not alone there. But it's also this thing where, like, I realize as I'm reading the lyrics, like, I remember always going, how does Tom Araya say these 4-syllable words this quickly? I can't even do 2-syllable words that quickly. And then you read some of these lyrics and you're like, wow, David, you are really giving Tom a run for his fucking money, man.
I mean, not to put myself in any league next to them.
Please.
I can't even say the name of our fucking podcast correctly half the time. So,
I mean, it's like the way he's doing it, and you're right, because it's like, and you're just like, where does he get the breath? I don't. By the way, and I'm playing, like, in a live setting, and I'm playing bass.
But to that point, that's also the thrashy delivery of lyrics.
Again,
right?
And just to reiterate, I'm not saying thrash. Obviously, thrash goes into death metal. Without thrash, you don't get death metal. I just feel like when I listen to this, I am not a big thrash guy.
Of course,
Metallica and Slayer. First 5, 4 Metallica, 5 Metallica albums, and Slayer.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it for me when it comes to thrash. So when I heard Death early on, Scream, Bully, Gore especially, I still heard thrash in it. Right. When I heard Possessed, I still heard thrash in it. First time I ever really sat down and listened to this, I heard less thrash than I had ever heard that wasn't already something established as death metal. Do you know what I'm saying? So yeah, no, again, it's just the way he just does those, and like again, by the way, some of these words are literally like they're not even English words, and he's still like just and you're just like by the time he gets, I'm like, it's just like
I'm tired of listening.
I'm not even playing, and it just
somehow my ears are sweating.
Yeah, I mean, another one I really Blasphemy.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And I wanted to write it down because I wanted to get it right because this is another one where 17-year-old Aaron would have definitely freaked the fuck out if he had heard like, do what thou wilt be the whole of the law. Now, especially now that I know where that actually comes from.
Sure. Yeah.
Rebel against the church, drink from the chalice of blasphemy, rise up against the enslaver. Like, oh my God, dude, this isn't, they are not fun. They literally have a song just called Evil Spells.
Evil Spells. Yeah.
Evil Spells, everybody. Here we go. And it's just like, but again, almost combative in their, like, there's one song on there, I cannot remember, and I don't remember the lyrics, and I didn't write them down, so you don't have to listen to me do them. But where it's like, he's literally like, oh, you think you're so tough because you're summoning demons? He'll kill you. He takes advantage of the weak. You don't even know what you're doing. Like, dude, guys, like, I'm kind of on your side. And you're like, go ahead, pussy. I dare you to do what we do, And it's just like, wow, man. It's just those kind of things. Like, I am drawn to those things, even though at one time they may have scared the shit out of me. But I am very much drawn to that. I like when something sounds that evil and it's just like that blatant.
That those first times that I actually paid attention to this album back as a kid, for that very reason, because it sounded scary. I knew it would piss my parents off. Oh, God, yeah. I mean, that's the reason that I got into other bands of this nature. But yeah, I mean, this album was really good to come back to because I forgot how much I actually enjoyed this first one, and I listened to a few of their other ones afterwards. I kept coming back to this, not just because of the purpose of this show. But,
well, like I said, for me, it's almost the exact opposite. This is one I listen to the least.
Yeah.
So when you suggested it, I went, oh, crap, I'm really going to have to sit down and, like, I got to start listening to this.
Honestly, it was like, we could have done any of the other ones, but I was like, well, let's start at the beginning for them, which, again, Altars is the beginning because Trey said so,
And I
was
love
aware
it.
of that. I was aware of that as well. But yeah, so like, coming back and listening to it after a while, I have to admit, it was awesome. It was like, man, this is fucking 12-year-old Nick again, like fucking jamming out on this shit,
And that's for 89.
89, yeah.
To last this long and still have the immediacy that you get from it is pretty amazing when you think about it.
It's something bands haven't been able to reach, I think, to a certain extent.
I feel you.
I know
a timelessness, if you will.
Yeah, because I know bands have accomplished a lot more since then.
But I know what you mean.
But something that sounds this kind of frantic and urgent, it's I haven't come across anything. I'm sure there's something that exists. And
certainly there are fresh approaches in death metal that we're seeing, stuff like Portal and stuff like that. There are people who are taking death metal into some interesting places. Are a band that we both enjoy to a degree, who's obviously heavily influenced Blood Incantation.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no doubt. They are, I mean, the first time I heard them, I was like, oh, this is Morbid Angel.
Yes.
Okay, somebody picked up a Morbid Angel album.
Yep.
So to see where they're taking their Morbid Angel influence is really cool to see.
Of course. Yeah. But, this one just kind of, I don't want to say it's like a stamp of the time, but it really is,
and yet can still remain timeless.
Sure.
Like when you hear it, what it's doing in that moment, but also still, I do think you could give it to a kid now and he'd still go, whoa.
Yeah.
One last thing, because we're talking about certain influences, and you reminded me of it because it is that great song, is that first one, Immortal Rights, is also, we talked about it with the keyboards. I don't know about you, but every time I hear that, I'd be like, okay, if Emperor didn't hear that at 14, 15 and go, we're taking that. I'm going to use that somewhere in a song. Like, are you fucking kidding me?
Well, Emperor would have been like 9 years old.
Which they probably were writing the first album at that point.
Exactly, yeah.
But at the same time, right? Like, the first time, like, you hear that and you just go, well, that's Emperor.
That's another thing. Like, they were doing stuff that again, not just the look, musically, they're doing stuff that black metal bands certainly would,
for
emulate
sure.
later on.
So especially in ways of symphonic stuff.
Stuff.
Emperor Phil or Emperor Cradle Phil's Demure Borgiers, they had to have heard these things and clearly gotten some. But Blesses the Sick, I know, has a lot more of the classical influences on it and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, even in this album, you're hearing that, and that's. Wow, for what is ostensibly your first album, like, way to go. And especially 8 days. Like, I was reading it, essentially it was, they had gun to the head. Digby there with the earache was like, we got a budget and we're fucking sticking to it. So let's go. Whereas once that was established, they had a little more time with each record. And I think that's why they could expand more. So it does make you, it's that wonderfulness of saying, God, what if they had 3 weeks? What could they have created? Well, maybe it wouldn't be so good. Maybe being under the gun is what... I
certainly am a believer of that. Like, if they had more time to kind of take with each song, etc., we would not have gotten this good of an album.
Yeah, absolutely not. No, and maybe that adds to the immediacy. You only got
to the urgency.
Look, guys, we only got so many days. Okay, fuck it, we got to get in there and go.
Yeah. I can only assume that like some of that was also what fed their anger in playing just the angry sounding riffs. Because you listen to like the rhythm guitars, and even the fucking rhythm guitars sound angry. And it's like, God damn, like
it's relentless. It's like the same way you felt when you heard Angel of Death the first time, or that album Rain of Blood, where you're just like, dude, there's no pause between each song. It just goes right into it. Like I can't even catch my breath. Like this does the same thing, and yet you do get a pause between each song, and it still feels like you're just being trampled the entire time, dude. And on top of it, being trampled by demons who are trying to rape you and take your soul.
You're being trampled by morbid angels.
Like literally, But yeah, no, I the same way you kind of got to go back in time, I appreciate that you picked this because it was like, you know what, this is an album I do not spend enough time with. And it was like a rediscovery of something where I'm like, I'm going to have to add this to my rotation of Morbid Angel more. Because for me, it's Domination. Obviously those first with Vincent, I love all of them.
Sure.
The Form is Fate of the Flesh doesn't do much for me. But Gateways to Annihilation, probably my second favorite Morbid Angel. But I got to be honest, this one, man, it is creeping into my top 3 big time.
Dude,
I hear this.
Again, I only have one favorite Morbid Angel album.
Really?
It's this one. It's this one by far.
You could do worse. You could do a hell of
I could. I could.
Believe me.
But yeah, this is also the start of their, naming scheme that they, which apparently was accidental, but they kept up with it.
Which I want to know. Somebody needs to ask him, when did you realize it and just keep going?
I think by letter B.
Right. I mean, right? Because it's like, it was totally accident. Really? You got all the way to Domination and went, oh, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah, wait a minute. That's the alphabet.
And by the way, if it was purposeful, that's fucking cool too.
That is cool.
I don't have a problem with that.
I mean, to get it as, what are they at now?
I believe K.
K. That's a good stretch of albums,
In so many ways. Number one, it really shows you how many albums you have. Number two, the collector, thank you very much. I don't have to remember what year you put it out. You know what I mean? None of my Morbid Angel gets lost in oh crap, when did that one come out again?
Yeah,
nope. Even I know my alphabet up to the K's. So we're good, It's just, Look, an important band in a lot of ways. Sure, maybe some, again, could be just right place, right time. Those things are very helpful in a lot of careers. No doubt about it. But a band that definitely pushed the genre, a band that set up a lot of what was to come.
Yes.
And took it in directions that this core group, without those initial 3, and nothing against the other guitar player, because he's amazing. I think he's on this one and the Blessed.
Yeah,
I think he leaves with Covenant, but that 3 core to put together what they have put together is something that will go down in its metal history. I mean, they are a beloved band for a reason, and this is the start of that. And and how many bands at this point too were, boy, that first album was good, and and for them to keep pushing and being able to do that, it says a lot about this band. And again, I think that's why they stick out a little bit more for me when it comes to death metal. It's just, I love the experimentation. I love the evilness. I love Vincent's vocals, the guitar playing, Pete. As I've said many times, I love the sound of a good drummer. Pete is fucking amazing.
Yeah, he's, I mean, I'm a fan of his drumming in other bands as
Absolutely.
well. You know?
We were both, again, fans of Terrorizer. Again, coming out in the same year. My God. I mean, can you even imagine walking into a record store and you pick up this and Terrorizer?
And it's the same drummer.
Yeah,
right?
and you're just like, so I'm just going to get the shit beat out of me for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's rock and roll, dude. Like, amazing. It really is.
Yeah,
And again, like I said, for me, again, obviously my fandom a little bit bigger than yours when it comes to the catalog especially. But again, I'm really glad you picked this one because while Covenant and others would have been easier for me, this was fun because it wasn't just one that I knew. It was one that I got to rediscover in ways I didn't bother listening to before.
I got to say, too, when I told one of my cousins, one of my aforementioned cousins, that we were going to talk about this one, and he was like, yeah, good job. Finally, you're into good music. And I'm like, dude, come on. I'm like, it's been like, what, at this point, 30 years, you know, like I've liked this band. I've liked this album. I just, you know.
And again, as I said, this is within the last 4 years of me really getting into death metal in any way. And this was one of the first bands. This and Deicide were the first two I went to. And they just both, like, just struck right away.
Hell yeah.
The heaviness, especially as a fan of death, of doom, and especially death doom.
Yeah.
The heaviness of both of these bands is what hit me the most.
You know, I was going to say with the favorite songs thing, Maze of Torment, Into Lord of All Fevers and Plagues, Into Chapel is the best trifecta of songs.
Dude, I will. Yes.
Like I love
that.
If I could listen to those three on repeat, and I have this week, I did.
Oh, dude.
You know, those three songs pummel me. They just, God damn, you know, like I listened to them. I was lifting weights because I'm a big swole dude. I'm not. But yeah,
lift, bro.
Actually, no. But yeah, I was lifting weights, and they came on, and I was like, I'm lifting corpses of saints right now. You know, I'm lifting dead religious bodies right now. These aren't weights. You know?
And again, speaking of their influences, tell me if I'm crazy. Maze of Torment. I probably about the fourth or fifth listen. It reminded me of something that would have come off of Hell Awaits.
Yeah.
It has a little bit of that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, I love a band that I can hear your influences, but it's not right there in front.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, you know, it's there. Obviously, they love Slayer. I mean, that's obvious. I'm just saying, like, but you're still doing your own thing with it, and I love that.
Yes,
you know?
yeah. I mean, even the way some of the guitar solos sound, it's like, oh, this is what Slayer would be if they meant it.
If it was a little less chaotic, and which, again, we both love Slayer.
Dude,
we are
I
massive
love
Slayer fans. I love the leads. I think they lend to the Slayer sound.
Sure.
But they are, essentially, it feels like someone's having a seizure on the guitar there for the most part.
Right.
When you get a lot of, especially from Carrie. Where this, it feels like a controlled chaos.
Yes.
Like
yes.
as if he is holding the tornado in his hand as it goes through all the frets.
Yeah, because I know Jeff Hanneman was a great guitar player. Right, but when you get to like Kerry King, it's like, dude, you're just kind of doing scales up and down the neck, and you're dive bombing to save your life, right?
Which again, for me, fits
It works.
Slayer.
It
works
works
for Slayer
because that's what I want from
Yes,
Slayer.
yes.
But then when you get a band like Morbid Angel, and then they're doing the thing, and it sounds the way it does,
Right.
and it's like, well, holy shit, why couldn't fucking Slayer give me this too? But I'm also glad that it was Morbid Angel, right?
And that's another thing I love about Morbid Angel in general and bands that do this, that sly technicality.
Yeah.
It's not me going, look what I can do on guitar.
Right.
But when you hear it, you go like, oh, fuck yeah, metal. And then you listen again, you go, oh, wait a minute.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
whoa, that's, you know what I mean? And I appreciate that. That I will not sacrifice a good riff or something that just sounds fucking badass just so I can stretch my finger a little bit further and play some secret chord that only, please the Lord. You know what I mean? So it's just like, that's something I love about it. Despite how good they all are, they still write great songs. It's not about just my technicality.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Everything about this particular album, I really am a big fan of Dave Vincent's voice on this. I know I've said it enough already, but just his barking, growls, raspy, again, cough-ridden, cold-ridden vocals.
Thank God there was no Theraflu.
Exactly, right? I don't think Alka-Seltzer was in business at that time.
Fuck off, Mucinex.
Yeah, right.
I got an album to record.
I don't have Tussin. Yeah. So, how do you folks feel about Morbid Angel's Altars of Madness? Would you give this a rating at all?
So if I'm going to be 100%. I'm going to take out any of the kind of historical stuff like that because
Yeah.
in the end, does it hit me? And especially of my love of Morbid Angel.
Yeah.
I would say it's an 8.
8. Okay. All right.
Because I just love where Morbid goes more than where they started. So
Okay.
I would go 8. There's no, and again, this is not a bad album. This is a fucking fantastic record in every sense of the word. But I will go 8 on this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
To add to that,
Please.
I will also take out the historical context of this. Just based on the music alone, this is a 10.
Oh, right on.
Yeah,
Okay.
This is a perfect fucking album. What I like in death metal that many other bands have achieved as well, this one also does.
Right on.
Everything that I love, whether it's the guitars, the drumming, the vocals, the bass work in it, you know,
Yeah.
the song structure, how it makes me feel, how it plays, everything is perfect for me in this album.
Right
And
on.
I think that's what, for me, gets lost a bit in,
I
every
hear
album
you.
that
No,
follows.
I absolutely hear you. I absolutely hear you.
Yeah.
But no, you're not gonna make me angry telling one of my favorite bands I got a 10 album, baby.
Yeah. So, again, what do folks out there, think about not just this album, but Morbid Angel as a whole? I know a lot of folks enjoy this band. Do any of you folks not like this band, not like this album? Let us know. What are you watching?
Actually, I have been watching quite a bit lately. We did a bit of a movie marathon at home. Let's see. I saw The Complete Unknown, which is the Bob Dylan biopic. Good acting, good stuff in it. Like most biopics, I really thought, Walk Hard with Dewey Cox. I really hoped he did kind of kill all of those because every time I watch a biopic, all I think is, did this actually happen? Is this a real person? Or are they a conglomerate of other people?
Yeah.
Why don't I just watch a documentary and then I could actually learn something where, I think a lot of the times these things are more of projects to allow actors to lose themselves in a role, man, or something like that. And I get it. That's their job. I'm not faulting them. But the performances were very good. I thought it was very fair to Bob Dylan. They did not portray him as a all-the-time hero, great guy. They showed that, he could be a bit of a womanizer. The way he treated women, especially at that time, was not fantastic. The girl who played Joan Baez, I thought was very good. She really captured Joan in a lot of ways. I mean, it's a very one of one voice. So to try to do her, all in all, again, it's just one of the things that got me a little, I don't want to say angry. I shouldn't get angry. Who gives a shit? But it's just the part where you just go, and I don't want to get into a big part of it, but just, of course they do the Dylan Goes Electric at the Newport Folk Festival, but they, this story over time has, it's a fish story that has gotten bigger and bigger every time somebody describes the fishing. Yeah. And the reality is yes, of course it upset people, but not in the way they portrayed in this film. They even have somebody yelling Judas, which is like, we know that famously happened when he toured England. That didn't necessarily happen at Newport. The other part where they're like, hey, it's the Newport Folk Festival. We don't allow electric, instruments here. Now, if you'll excuse me, Johnny Cash and the Tennessee Trio. Well, last time I checked, old Luther Perkins there plays an electric goddamn guitar. So you did allow it. You knew you had it. You just didn't like the way he was doing it. I get that part, which is also funny to listen to when you think of where music has progressed and the idea that his Fender blues riffs were going to be too loud for a crowd. And it's like there's no distortion on the fucking thing whatsoever. And you're just like, what? I can't even tell Dylan's playing a guitar. What are we worried about? You know what I mean? Anyway, all that to say, good movie, very good performances. I mean, the attention to details in some things. These people are playing their own instruments, singing the songs. Impressive. But almost like watching a sporting event more than watching a movie.
Yeah.
Another one I saw, the Wicked. Saw that. They're fucking good. It's just a good goddamn movie. I mean, I'm not a theater guy. I didn't really see it in the theater, as it was a play. Yeah. But you definitely are watching this going, this is why you go to the movies. Like right here, my God, look at what I'm seeing, Yeah. Very good. Performance is fantastic in it. Everybody was really, really good. Also surprised to find out, I guess this is part 1 of 2, so holy God, because it was about 3 hours.
Wicked 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Boogaloo, yeah, I can't wait. I hear Boogaloo Shrimp's going to show up and do some popping and locking. So he represents the popping and locking group. And it's, again, very good movie. a bit surprising. It was something that didn't win more, I guess, in Oscars because it feels like this is exactly what making movies is all about as I'm watching it. Very surprising.
Yeah, I didn't see it. Not that I don't have an interest.
Sure.
But I never got into the play either.
Yeah,
Amy actually went to go see the play.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So I'd be surprised if she wasn't interested in seeing this. But to your point,
Yeah, please.
It does feel like something that Hollywood would trip over themselves in propping up more, right?
Absolutely.
Because not just the amount of money that went into it,
No.
but all the effort was made into making it, the costumes or whatever. Like,
oh my God! I mean, the costume design alone, you're just like this touches on things I've seen, but this is also brand new.
Yeah.
And then I would also say, like, anytime somebody can take something, and this goes to something we both agree on when it comes to like Dune. Anytime you can take something as beloved as something like that was a theater project ultimately, and bring it to the big screen, and it seems at least overwhelmingly people approve of it and absolutely love it.
Yeah.
That's an achievement unto itself.
Yeah, if people can sign off on that interpretation, then that's going to become, part of the lexicon.
Yes. Right? And it felt, I guess, watching it just was one of those things where you are transported in a way, the same way, quite frankly, a Marvel movie would do, where you just go, I'm watching a movie.
Yes.
People are flying. Like, that's a weird camera angle. That train doesn't exist. They had to make that to make it look that way. Like, I'm watching a movie here. You know what I mean? And I just like, and it's nothing against independent film or anything. I'm not arguing against it. I'm just saying, like, it is sometimes nice to sit and watch a movie that you go, yeah, this isn't something you watch on your phone.
From what
you
it
need
sounds
a big
like,
screen TV.
Yeah, from what it sounds like, this is kind of like not a return. I don't want to say a return. But
I know
like
what you mean.
a nod to big Hollywood.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Like you could see this being made in the 40s or 50s as one of the big musicals that came out with Singing in the Rain or something like that. Absolutely. But a much more updated version of it,
Right. Yeah.
Other than that, no, there's some usuals. Deadpool, Wolverine again. That was fun to go back and watch. Kill Bill 1 and 2. Went back and watched that.
That was great.
Yeah. Other than that, wife and I still on our 6 Feet Under binge. Very much. What I'm really taking away from that the second time is when we first watched it, I probably was in my early 20s to late 20s, and now watching it as an older person, I guess, in my late 40s. Taking some of the things away, it is interesting when you go back and watch something at a different age and you take it much differently. Especially a show that deals a lot with death, which is, in all confidence, it's just between you and I. Yeah. As I say this into a microphone, but death scares the shit out of me. If I do not want to die, if I could live forever, I'd like to. And this is constantly like death every episode. So that's interesting. But yeah, other than that, the usuals. How about yourself? Anything new and exciting?
Exciting, yes.
Okay.
So it was my wife Amy's birthday at the start of the month.
Oh, happy birthday!
And
Amy.
we did our annual viewing of Tango and Cash.
Nice.
Which she can recite the entire movie, start to finish.
Once again, Nick, I've said this before, and I need to say it again. She is a keeper.
I believe so. Yeah.
I know that was part of her vows. Was also the Tango and Cash.
It was in there. Yeah. It was in there.
I tango.
Take cash. Yeah. So it was cool, and I like that I can quote a line, quote it incorrectly, and then she'll correct me. She's like, "No, you idiot! It's like this." But yeah, that's always a cool one to watch. And
any reason that movie? I mean, I love it. I absolutely love it. And I know your wife. She's got great taste in everything.
Yes.
But it's just an interesting one. If you gave me 1,000 guesses on a movie that Amy has memorized,
oh, believe me, when that came out as being like one of her favorite movies, I was like, did you misspeak here?
Like, what Tango and Cash is, right? Like,
Tango and Cash. Sylvester Stallone and Kurt Russell.
It's the one I saw, right?
Yeah. Like, I know that movie. Me, the big dummy me, But yeah, so we watched that. We watched Adolescence, which, I've kind of seen some mixed opinions on. I thought it was fantastic.
This is on Netflix, correct?
Netflix,
okay.
Yes. And it's a 4-part series, so it's very quick, maybe like an hour or so each episode.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's a quick watch.
Okay. No excuse now. Shit.
Incredibly emotional. Oh my God. The main actor that you reminded me earlier was from Snatch. So he's Jason Statham's counterpart in Snatch.
Yes. among other things.
Among others, yes. But, that's where I would remember him.
Great actor. Very
great
good.
actor.
I like
And
him a
this
lot.
one, oh, my God. If you thought he was a great actor before, wait till you watch this.
All right.
The end episode had me bawling like a child. And I was not... It deals with parenthood. I'm, for everybody out there, I'm not a parent. But...
That you know of.
That I know.
For legal reasons, yes.
But I do have a nephew, who's a young little boy of 5 years old.
Right on.
Not that I'm raising him directly either, but I can see the influence.
Family.
Yeah. I can see the influence of what some of the kids in this series got into, the dangers of it,
sure.
And how it could affect the family to the way it did in the series. Just the last few scenes of the father in the last episode alone, worth it.
And is this a limited series? Is this a one-time thing?
I think this is a one-time thing.
Right.
Honestly, if they did a second series or something, I don't know that it would be as good as this first.
Okay,
one.
You sold me.
Yeah, this is such a good watch. And again, if you have a few hours a week, it's a quick watch. And apparently, we learned that it was all filmed in one continuous take, every episode.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so when you watch it and you know that fact, it's wild. It's really wild. Because, I can't see,
sure.
right? But just listening to all the scene changes and everything that's happening in the episodes.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's crazy to know that.
Now, Amy watched this with you?
She did, yeah.
Would you say that, how do I want to phrase this? I just want to, it's not obviously you're getting the emotional part of it.
Yes.
You're saying, and again, but the visuals are not there. Did she ever get a sense of it's almost like I'm watching a magic trick that's trying to be a show, or it's just a neat, in other words, if you didn't know it was, maybe that's a better way to phrase it. If you didn't know it was done in one shot, would it have affected this show in any way?
Not at all.
Okay,
Not
good,
at all.
good.
No, yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah,
good
no,
to know. I don't want to watch a magic trick that also has a show. You know what I mean?
Right. It doesn't affect it one way or another. It's just a neat little cool little fact about
kind of that
the
True
production.
Detective episode that you found out later was all one shot.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
So we watched that, and then, because in my life I'm fortunate enough to be surrounded by Aries. My nephew's birthday is just a few days away from my wife's, so we went to go watch the Minecraft movie, which would not have been my first choice.
Liar.
But I gotta say, it was entertaining as hell. Now, I'm blind. I don't know what the hell Minecraft is about. I remember seeing shots of the gameplay and all that, but the movie, and I don't even know that the movie is closely related to the actual story in the game.
Okay.
But it's got Jason
does the game
Momoa.
have a story?
Apparently it does.
Okay.
But it's got Jason Momoa.
Right.
It's got Jack Black, who I could do with or without, whatever. I don't care about him.
Okay.
But he is entertaining in the movie, but I think Jason Momoa steals the show.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
Hard to do with a Jack Black in a movie.
Dude, he is hilarious in this.
Okay.
And because of Jason Momoa, I think I like Minecraft now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's so fucking weird. Jennifer Coolidge is also in this.
Oh, okay.
I don't know the other actors and actresses.
Okay.
But like I said, it's entertaining as hell.
Right on.
It's a quick 100 minutes or so.
More importantly, how did the nephew like it?
He loved it.
Okay.
By the end of the movie, there was another little kid sitting next to him.
Right on.
They had just met that evening, right?
As one does.
And they were both, because there's a big piece, a big part at the end where they're playing a song.
Okay.
So my nephew and the other kid were standing in the aisles, horns in the air,
Nice.
rocking out.
Nice.
And
Nice.
and I'm just like, wow, this is cool. This is cool that he liked this.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
at certain parts in the movie when references are made to the game that I didn't get,
Sure.
he did.
Right on.
He's clapping.
That's cool.
And I'm like, cool. My nephew's a little geek. He's a little nerd, and aptly so, he's in the right family for that.
Cool. That's cool.
So yeah, so that was the other thing that we watched.
Very fun.
Now we're going to take a bit of a moment here as part of our "What Are We Watching" segment to pay tribute to a legend that we lost.
Yeah.
Recently, Val Kilmer passed away.
Yes.
Aaron and I are both fans of his entire body of work, I think.
Pretty much, yeah.
We have favorites, of course.
For sure.
But do you know what age he passed away at?
I do not.
Like
I do not. I'm sorry.
he
That's
was
something I should have looked
like
at.
65 years old, something like that.
Was this also due to complications with his? Because he
had
got
throat
throat
cancer,
right?
Yeah,
Okay.
no, so he died of pneumonia.
Oh, good
Yeah.
old pneumonia swooping in at the last.
At the
goddamn second.
last minute, yeah.
I just to clarify, I just looked up 65.
65.
Very
yeah.
young.
Yeah, incredibly young, right?
It really is.
Yeah, so Val Kilmer is one of those actors that kind of came in. What was the first movie? Top Secret, I think,
Yes.
right? Which is a hilarious movie.
It really is.
And I think
I'd love to say it was my first experience with him, but yeah, it's a fucking great film.
I think a lot of people started off with Real Genius.
I would. That's what I was wondering. Was Real Genius or is it Top Gun?
I remember him in Real Genius.
Like I want to say, because God knows, once again, this is a thing that you and I certainly share. Growing up, HBO, that
Yes,
thing
yeah.
was on at least 5 times
Yes,
a day.
yeah.
You know, I won't pretend when watching it at 13 that I knew this, but I definitely go back now and you see that movie and he just leaps off the screen.
Oh, yes, of course. You know,
You go, well, this guy's gonna be a star. Like I mean, if he finds the right project, it's over.
it's
all
over. It's game over.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, and then
And he's great in that movie. I love that film. I absolutely. He's so good in almost like a Ryan Reynolds before Ryan Reynolds, having all the fun little quips that he can
Yes,
throw at somebody.
yes.
You know, smartest guy in the room at all times, always has the quick smart ass remark no matter what anybody throws at him. And yet, let's be completely honest, is real easy on the eyes, but you never doubt for a second that he's some nerd hanging out with the rest of these people.
Right. Yeah, he kind of, his presence kind of commanded your attention.
Yeah.
You know, not just because of the volleyball scene in Top Gun, but when he's like biting his own teeth, chomping at Tom Cruise, and everybody knows the scene, right?
Yes.
It's like, God damn, I wish I could be as cool as Iceman.
Yes.
Right? Like, he is the reason I think a lot of people, obviously Tom Cruise is the star of Top Gun.
But almost taken by Val Kilmer. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it was a vehicle for Tom Cruise in a lot of ways. But let's be honest, people definitely walked out of there going, "Who is Iceman?"
Who is Iceman? Yes. Yeah. So, I remember when I got to Top Gun and seeing him in that, I was like, God damn, that dude right there.
Yeah.
Willow, fucking Mad Mardigan.
I mean, come on.
Just, he's so lovable.
Yeah.
As Mad Mardigan. Right? Because he's like,
And so very different from anything he had done prior to that.
Yes.
Maybe some of the comedy from the first movie.
Yep.
But nonetheless, it's not Iceman, and
No.
it's not the Real Genius guy.
he's not the cool guy. He's a bumbling oaf in Willow, right?
Yes.
And somehow he still is the hero, right? He can't even twirl a sword at one scene, right? Falls over and everything, but he ends up being one of the big heroes in the movie.
Yeah.
Just a lovable character.
Yeah.
Right. And then what's after that? Is it The Doors after that?
I think it'd be some. I mean, again, I looked, but I didn't really look in order. I would say The Doors got to be, somebody like maybe something like is it Thunderhawk? Or what's
Thunderheart.
Thunderheart
That
might
came-
have
I
that
think-
might
I
have
think
been
that-
in between there.
I think so. Yeah.
I mean,
I love that movie
I do
also.
too. It's a good movie.
It's
but
kind of like a sleeper movie,
which that's something I looked in his career. Now his latter movies towards the end here, he did a lot of stuff that went straight to DVD or
Yeah.
straight to cable. So
Salt and Sea.
well, Salt and Sea, even those. Like there's this period where he is doing Heat, Batman,
Yeah.
but he's also doing Salt and Sea,
Yeah.
Thunderheart.
Yep.
They're smaller movies, but wow, do you go? This guy just he morphs himself into these roles. I mean, none more so than obviously something like The Doors.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, there are moments where you're really like, I'm not sure if that's not Jim Morrison.
Yeah,
You
and
know.
famously, The Doors, not the best movie, but it is a good movie.
It's a good movie.
For somebody who can disregard the actual events that happened. Right?
As I like to say, his conspiracy movie about JFK may have more factual things in it than The Doors.
Yeah, right.
When it comes to Oliver Stone.
Exactly. Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
So, but oh my God, when I remember when I saw, I'm like you, I'm a huge Doors fan.
Yeah.
Seeing him in there, and then later finding out that he's also singing the songs,
Yes.
and it sounds just as good as
At
the,
least.
the real guy,
Yeah.
And it's like, God damn. And I don't need every actor to sing
I'm
the
with you.
songs.
100.
Like you were talking
Yes.
about with the
With
Bob
the-
Dylan
yes,
movie,
yes,
right?
Yes.
But he just poured himself into that role.
It's something he did with a lot of his roles. When
Yes,
you start
yeah.
to realize. Absolutely. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, so like The Doors is, it's one that I came back to and keep coming back to a lot because it's just entertaining.
It really is.
It's like, I know this didn't happen and there weren't naked Indians walking around everywhere, but
hey, I didn't go on that peyote trip, so I don't know.
Well, I did, and there weren't any naked people. So
well, I love too is just tangentially the part where Wayne's World takes that. Like that's how big that movie really was.
Yes,
that
exactly.
Wayne's World 2 is literally just going, we're going to do it about the Doors.
The Doors,
movie.
yeah.
Like, now people may watch it and go, I don't get any of this. It's like, well, if you were alive then, you would have understood how important this Doors movie really was.
Yeah. And I always thought that Jim Morrison from Wayne's World 2 wasn't even Jim Morrison. It was Val Kilmer's take on Jim Morrison, right? But yeah, so then he does Thunderheart, Ghost in the Darkness.
Yeah, that's another good one from him.
Another fucking great movie, which apparently, I don't know if that kickstarted his kind of love affair with Africa, but that's one of the ones that...
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so I was listening to an interview with David Letterman, and he was talking about him visiting Africa a few times.
Well, that's another thing. Like, he's one of those guys that you go, he's an interesting dude outside of his acting.
Yeah.
Like, can really speak, and I don't mean that to be because actors are stupid. I just mean like, you realize this guy's deep. Like, there's shit going on in that head of his. This isn't just some guy who just repeats lines and looks good. Which, by the way, even if he just rested on looking good, he'd be fine for the rest of his life.
Oh, yes.
You know what I mean? And it's just like, that's something I always loved about him. And you see he brings that to his roles.
Yes. Yeah.
And yeah. No, that's interesting. I did not know the Africa stuff.
Yeah, and it was cool, too, because he's such a internationally known person.
For sure.
And he's an LA local, right? Which is cool. San Fernando Valley. Mm-hmm. But then we come up on, like, Tombstone, which... Yeah. God, what a fucking movie, right?
Yeah, great, and just one of those ones, when people do that, tell me a role where somebody did it so well no one could ever do it again. Well, that's kind of one of them. I mean,
Doc Holliday, yeah.
His Doc Holliday is now the Doc Holliday in a lot of ways. I feel bad for anybody who tries to play Doc Holliday.
There were people before him.
Certainly. And
but
after.
But his is by far the best version of that character. He also did a movie called The Saint.
Yeah, that one. It has moments.
See, I think a couple of my brothers and I happen to really enjoy that movie. For some reason, it just stands out. I was like, it's good. The action's kind of good.
Yeah.
I
mean, it's an old British television show. They made it into a movie. Roger Moore, I think, was the Saint, right? The original Saint, who goes on to be James Bond, which is essentially what the Saint was trying to be to a degree. Believing that Elizabeth Shue was a nuclear scientist is a little, but whatever. Who knows? Maybe she's still with the Karate Kid. It's just, No, I do, again, not a bad movie at all, but amongst his movies, it's a little lower on the tier for me. And I think now you're kind of burying the lead here. Like, you say international star. Well, it doesn't hurt when you play Batman.
Well,
Batman's a great way
I was about to get to Batman.
Batman's a great way to become an international star.
I honestly think that he did such a great role in Batman. And I don't know this to be true, but I think he did such a great role as Bruce Wayne / Batman that that's why they got Christian Bale. Because for me, Christian Bale's looks are reminiscent of Val Kilmer's.
Yeah. I can see that for sure.
Yeah, and had that movie been any more serious, I don't know that it would have been as fun as it is. Because those movies are fun for me, like the Schumacher films, right?
Yeah.
They are fun. They are fun. Even if Tommy Lee Jones is basically doing the Joker / Riddler and not Two-Face.
Right.
But that's for another episode.
Yes.
But yeah, and then did you watch Kiss Kiss Bang Bang?
I did. That's on my. I have my list of the underrated Val Kilmer ones, and I think that's number one on my list of an underrated. Not a lot of people know it. Another thing I think is interesting about that movie is teaming him up with. God dang it! Now, of course, I can't remember his name. Iron Man. What's
Robert Downey.
Robert Downey Jr. Yeah. Watching that movie reminded me of how similar those two are.
Yes.
They're very cerebral. They're way smarter than they need to be when it comes to being an actor.
Yep.
And seeing those two together in some way, I was thinking about this today. It was almost like a lesser version, and I don't mean that in the way that sounds, but a lesser version of getting to see De Niro and Pacino.
Oh yeah,
in a movie together.
Yeah.
Which is also another one of the great Val Kilmer, not only films but performances, which is Heat.
Heat. Oh my God. Yes, of course.
He is so subtle in that movie. He doesn't have a whole lot of lines. If you really look back at that movie,
he's not like one of the main. I mean, he's one of the main characters.
Yeah.
But he's not in the forefront like De Niro and Pacino are.
He doesn't. But he also is. And this is a movie that is in probably my top 10 movies all time.
Same.
I fucking love Heat.
Yeah, same.
He is De Niro's rock. It's why he tries to save him.
Of course.
He doesn't need to say anything.
Right.
But he also has a few, like, I love when De Niro is essentially trying to talk him out of the marriage.
Yeah.
And he tells him the sun rises and sets with her, man.
Yeah.
And that's all you need to know about him. He does love this woman.
His story arc is the most emotional in that movie.
Hands down.
Yes.
And yet, again, he doesn't say a lot in that movie. There's not a lot of talking from him. It's all in the face. It's excuse me, we had Mexican. It's all in the face. It's all in what he's expressing. It's never a word. I mean, just even subtle things when it's you shoot the guy.
Yeah.
At the beginning, and he looks at De Niro, and De Niro looks back at him and essentially gives him the nod. Kill them all. Yeah. These little things, and I love that movie, and he is so very good in that film, and that's obviously that's one along with Batman that a lot of people know, and they should, and he's great in it, and I think another one I know you're a fan of that I think is kind of underrated. I don't know how many people have seen it. Wonderland.
Wonderland is an amazing movie. It's an amazing movie.
And his performance is here's this guy, again, who could have easily rested on his looks. Yeah. Well, he doesn't have them in this movie. He is a maniac. He is a coke fiend playing John Holmes. For those who don't know, this is a movie about the Wonderland murders that happened here in Los Angeles, that John Holmes, the famous porn star, may or may not have been part of, allegedly. Yeah. So people beaten to death, and he may have taken part in it because they had robbed what was essentially a gangster here in Los Angeles that owned a bunch of clubs on the Sunset Strip, including some that still exist today under a much different name. But anyway, his manic performance in that is unbelievable.
Yes.
It's just, it's constant. You feel stressed every time he comes around, and he's so fucking good in that movie, man. Yeah. And that's another one that I watch it over and over again, and his performance is what stands out every single time.
There's also the fever dream known as the Island of Dr. Moreau.
Yes. Which,
stars a homie from The Godfather whose name
I know who you're talking about. Yeah, I don't know why I can't think of his name either, but go ahead. Yes.
I'm old.
It'll be coming to me.
But yeah, Fairuza Balk is in it, and apparently the world's smallest person at the time.
Yes.
Right? That, again, I don't think Fever Dream does it justice because it's like a movie that's been vomited out and like taped back together, right?
That's a
great
way to put
but
it.
somehow, like, he's the one trying to make sense of it, right?
Like, and not just in the movie, but, and I know you know this, it's not just the movie that is a batshit crazy and you feel like he's the one guy trying to steer the ship. But when you watch the documentary about that movie being made, which may actually be better, it's kind of like Hearts of Darkness with Apocalypse Now, where the documentary may actually be better, then you really find out he is like, what the fuck did I sign up for, dude? And just like...
Marlon Brando.
And Marlon Brando, there you go.
Yeah.
And also... kind of being an asshole to an asshole named Marlon Brando.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Like, kind of not taking his shit and giving it back to him.
In that same David Letterman interview that I watched, he says how much he admired Marlon Brando because when he met him, Brando apparently spoke 6 languages within the hour.
Wow.
Yeah. So, this isn't to take away from Val Kilmer, but
no.
Val Kilmer was able to recognize this is a force to be reckoned with.
Well,
but he held his own.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely. And as an actor, this is Marlon Brando. This is the guy that changed everything when it came to acting. So to your point, back to Heat real quick, there was a famous, or not famous, but there was a little quote that I saw somebody put up where he talked about how amazing it was to shoot Heat. I now get to say Bob and Al.
Yeah.
It was like, are you kidding me?
Yes.
I got to shoot a movie with these two people. Yeah. I love that that's not lost on him. And so you say the same with Island Dr. Moreau. It's not lost on him that he's sitting across from one of the greatest actors of all time.
Honestly, he had a run from the mid 80s to just past the mid 90s.
Oh yeah.
Where he could have just rested on the laurels of those movies alone.
Oh, for sure.
Right? But he kept on and making other stuff that was just as good, I think. Yeah. just as fun to watch.
Another favorite of mine, it's again a little underrated, called Spartan.
Yes,
David Mamet.
Yes,
which
yep.
if anybody, Glenn Ross would be the most famous of Mamets.
Yeah.
Mamet's a playwright, does a lot of plays.
Yeah.
But Mamet has a language that only Mamet speaks, and only the people in Mamet's shit speak.
Yeah.
And this was one of his I think he only directed 2 movies, David Mamet, and this is one of them.
Yeah.
He plays like an FBI agent. Someone's been kidnapped. He has to go after him. A little bit of action, but again, he's so good in it, dude.
Yes,
And
yes.
you can, when you're watching the movie, you can tell not a huge budget. This isn't it probably didn't do very well at the theaters, but I think for him it was a chance to work with David Mamet. So why not? And he's great in it. And it's just like you're saying, it's like you get the Heats, you get the Batmans, but in the meantime he's doing these other ones like a Salton Sea or a Spartan or a Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which some of Kiss Kiss Bang Bang was a little bit of a comeback for him, but very much a comeback for his co-star.
Yeah.
But great underrated movie written by Shane Black, who brought us Lethal Weapons and Predators and stuff like that. Yeah.
He also was in. I was reminded of this. The last thing that I would have recognized him in. Fortunately, I didn't get to see him. But it was the Jay and Silent Bob reboot.
Oh, really? Okay.
So there's a funny story. This is somebody else's story. I'm just relaying it. So excuse me if I get it wrong. But one of the original people that worked on the costume for Batman was requested by Kevin Smith to do a costume for the Jay and Silent Bob reboot.
Oh, okay.
Right? And it was for the Batman Forever movie, which Val Kilmer was in.
Right.
So this guy's like, all right, cool, he starts finding out who's going to be using the costume because it was going to be for the Jay and Silent Bob alternate, identities of Bluntman and Chronic, which are the Batman and Robin ripoffs, right? So the costume effects guy finds out that it's going to be Val Kilmer. But he's already been sick with the throat cancer, and he only comes out in the movie kind of brooding as, I believe, Bluntman. But that's kind of a cool thing that, like, he even knew to have fun with the impact he had,
Oh, he was willing to take the piss out of himself. I always admire that about anybody in any way. I agree with you there.
Yeah, so that was kind of cool that, like, for a person who's a big fan of movies, like Kevin Smith is, Val Kilmer was able to come back and play what is essentially a ripoff of a character he played, Batman, right?
Right.
And it's a fun little kind of little factoid that's thrown in there in the movie. But I always thought that was like a cool, like, last role that he played,
Well, yeah, I mean, and then getting to be put in Maverick, that was nice.
Yeah.
I can't lie, that was for a movie that was just going to be popcorn and have some fun. All of a sudden, you're like, am I crying? Like, what the fuck? Wait a minute. No, I thought we were just going to shoot commies down with our jets and have a good time. What am I doing crying here?
Unidentified enemy combatants.
Right, exactly. And it's just like, Tom Cruise had tons of wonderful things to say about him. Purposely made sure to put him in the film because he understood. I saw just recently, I guess he was at some film festival, asked everybody for a moment of silence for Val.
Nice.
I think one of my last ones for me that is, again, I put it in the underrated. I don't know how many people have seen this movie, but I would highly recommend it. Is him playing the bad guy in MacGruber, known as Kunth.
Oh,
First of all, MacGruber, I will watch that 16 times in a row, and I'm never tired of it. That movie makes me laugh so goddamn hard. And the fact that he almost does it in the same way, the smart way they do it in the airplanes and everything else, he plays it straight.
Yeah.
He's the bad guy like it would be if it were a James Bond movie, like if it would be any other movie, and it works so good. Nick called Kunth, of all things. It's fucking ridiculous. The whole movie's fucking ridiculous, and that's what I love about it. And I love that. Oh, when was the last time he got to do a real comedy? Well, probably the first movie he ever did when he did it with the Zucker brothers. So it's kind of neat that he got to do that again. But no, I'm with you. I was absolutely shocked. I mean, I guess I knew certainly I understood of the throat cancer.
Yeah.
So waking up, getting into work, I check my phone, and immediately I see it. I'm just like, oh, I was crushed.
Yeah.
This is a guy who's been in our lives for a very long time.
For a long
movies
time.
that really were, I mean, we did our top action, and Tony Scott was obviously on our list, and that is Top Gun. So these movies, real genius, like you said. You and I, as young HBO fans, that thing was on all the time. So this guy's been in my life. Willow is a huge. I don't know how many times any daycare I ever stayed in didn't play with the shit out of Willow. You know what I mean? So this guy's been in my life for a very long time, and I've gotten to, along with you, we've gotten to kind of grow with him and see him expand into other roles and do other things. So
yeah, because he's in like those kind of iconic movies, but they're also like forever movies, you know?
Dude, great. Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
That's a great way to put it.
And you know, they're certainly timestamps of when they come from.
Yeah.
But because they are forever movies, they're a good look into the past. When people hear about like, oh, there was a Doors movie, and you watch it and you see Val Kilmer just oozing charm left and right, right? Like he is
great.
Jim Morrison.
Great. You're charming. The guy's fucking charming as shit, dude.
Yeah.
Like again, he can just walk into a room and there's already going to be attention drawn to him. But he's also charming.
Yeah, one thing that, you know, that I will forever remember about him was just like him smiling on camera.
Yes.
Like I want to be friends with that guy.
Well, even smiling at some parts, like the part in Heat where he's coming out of the bank, big smile on his face till he notices the cops and opens fire.
Yes.
Like shit like that.
Man, that was great. And also what killed me in Heat, especially when he's trying to go back to, I forget her name.
The sister.
The Judd sister, right?
Ashley Judd.
Ashley Judd.
Yes.
When he's at her apartment.
Yeah.
And you can tell he's been crying.
Yeah.
Right, and she waves him away, and he knows like that's the sign,
that's
the signal. Like I can't come back to this anymore.
I lost everything that I cared about.
Yep. And he has to just course correct.
Yep, immediately.
He can't feel it. He can't feel the emotion. He can't get lost in feeling sad.
Right.
He just has to go on. Right?
He does the thing that ultimately Neil couldn't, where he turns and walks away from the heat when the heat is there.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh man.
It's a great movie, but more importantly, a great actor.
Great actor.
We are definitely at a loss without him. It's a shame to see what more he could have done.
That's that's right there. One thing, you know, I know we always kind of look at things and say like, what if this director had done that, or what if this actor had done that? What if Val Kilmer had been given the opportunity to be in some other movies?
Yeah,
I know he would have shined, whatever. Shown? Yeah, I don't know. English is my second language.
English is my first, and I still don't know, so don't worry about it.
I think he would have been fantastic.
Yeah,
he was fantastic in everything he gave us. One of the greats, I think.
I do.
You know,
I'm with you 100. I think he's going to get a big moment at the Oscars next year, and you're going to see people really give it up for him.
Yeah. So, you know.
I think a guy, too, to your point, he's one of those guys sometimes you forget what you're losing until you've lost it.
Definitely. Yeah. So, you know, Val Kilmer, thank you for the movies you left us with.
Yes.
We will never forget you.
No.
And with that, folks, we'll catch you next time.
Right on.
Hey, folks, thank you so much for checking out the rehearsal room. We super appreciate you spending time with us. If you have any questions, comments, or want to yell at us for any of the takes we've expressed in any of these episodes, you can contact us by emailing us at therehearsalroompod@gmail.com. All one word, therehearsalroompod@gmail.com. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, and now on Blue Sky. Also, if you have any recommendations for any movies or any bands you might want us to check out and give a listen to, feel free to send those in. We always accept submissions. Or if you have any shows coming up that you feel we might be interested in checking out, let us know and we'll give you guys a shout out. But thank you for checking us out, and we'll catch you next time.